What up, fam? It's your boy, Son of a Boy 2024, streaming to you live. I want to do another PS5 Chronicles. I was on my way to finally getting started on Horizon Zero Dawn, but something else caught my eye. Once again, I have to postpone the Horizon. I'm sorry, Aloy. I'm sorry, but Kana's got my eye now. Aloy has to wait. Okay, I'm in GameStop, one of the few remaining GameStops. The one I used to go to closed recently, so I just found a new location. But the guy there is cool. It's a cool store, so I'm getting used to shopping there now. But I'm just checking out what PS5 games they have. I'm not even intending to buy anything. You know what I mean? But something catches my eye, and I have been trying to find this game for the longest time actually. Way back. So this game came out in 2021. For those who don't know. It's fire. It's amazing. It's so underrated. If you see this game, buy this game, pick this game up. Seriously, I was lucky. I got the deluxe edition. In fact, it was used, but yeah, no, this game. I think it launched at about $40. And considering it's a PS5 game, that's pretty damn cheap. It's. We'll talk about this in a second, but it's technically, I guess, an indie title, so it's a little cheaper than your standard PS5 game. I mean, that can go for $60 or even $70. That's the new price point. So this was pretty cheap at launch, and then I bought it used at GameStop for about $20. So in my mind, it's a freaking steal. So I had to go for it. So I have it. So this is my next game to play. Sorry, Aloy, you're gonna have to wait again. But yeah, I first learned about this game. I was reading a Game Informer article back in 2021. They had an issue about it. I couldn't find it for this video. I have it somewhere, but they had a cover. This was featured on the cover. This is a cover issue. They had a whole feature about Kana, Bridge of Spirits, this game that was coming out later that year. And I was reading about it, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like this game sounds awesome! Like this is going to be one of my first games to play for PS5 if and when I get a PS5." And here we go. The game, it's not, it's interesting. It is a timed exclusive. So when the game launched, it launched for PC on the Epic Game Store and also PS4/PS5. Timed exclusive. So in 2021, this came out, and then it has yet to come out for Switch. I don't think it will because the graphics are just too good. It's just too powerful of a game. I don't think it'll ever come out for Switch, which is fine. There's enough games like this on Switch anyway. This is kind of like a We'll talk about this in a second. It's kind of like a Zelda-like, honestly. And obviously the Switch has enough of those. But yeah, Xbox just got it. Xbox just got it at the end of 2024. So Xbox players had to wait 3 years, but they got it. They eventually got it. But yeah, it's a timed PlayStation exclusive, which is crazy because it was like an indie game basically. So I don't know, but Sony saw an opportunity. They said, "Hey, this is going to blow up. We want this. We're going to give you some extra money. Put it on our console only." And they're like, "Yeah, sure." So this is coming to you from a company called Ember Lab. This is their first game. This is their launch game. So this is why it's interesting. We can have a whole discussion. I might do a video on this topic at a later date. But what actually is an indie game? Like what defines it? What are kind of the parameters? It's one of those things. It's simple yet complex. It starts out very simple. Oh well, it's just not a AAA game. You've got your AAA games like Call of Duty, and then you have your indie games like Undertale or whatever, right? But there's definitely a gray area in between that this definitely, if there is any kind of gray area, I think people have even discussed the idea of there being a double A game. Is that something people kind of say now? Kana definitely occupies that territory because it's a weird. I was on Reddit and people were discussing this. So again, first time game from this first time studio, Ember Lab. It has all the makings of an indie game, but it had a decent amount of money behind it. And when you play it, it doesn't feel like an indie game. It doesn't feel like any concessions were made at all. You feel like you're just playing a PS5 game. You know what I mean? That's why it's so mind-blowing to me that I'm playing this for $20. I got this for $20. Horizon is what, $50 on PS5? I mean, it's not. Granted, it's not Horizon. I mean, Horizon was literally made by PlayStation Studios. It had all of Sony's backing, But this is like I don't know, a 0.5. If you told me this was a demo for demo build for Horizon, I'd be like an alpha for Horizon. I'd believe you. That's how good this game is. Yeah. So Horizon will probably come after this because honestly, they're kind of similar games. So this is a good stepping stone to that. And this is a much shorter game, so it won't take me that long. Horizon's gonna take me probably a freaking year to complete with all the different trials and side quests and shit. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, Kana Bridge of Spirits. So this first time company making this game, but with a surprising amount of money behind it, surprising level of quality. Sony did not produce the game per se, but they did pay for console exclusivity, so you have that odd, caveat as well. So that's why I was on Reddit and people were discussing, like, what is this game? Is it an indie? And it did win Indie Game of the Year at the Game Awards of that year, 2021, I believe. So, is it an indie game? Well, yeah, it won Indie Game of the Year at the Game Awards. So there you go. I mean, yeah, I guess it's an indie game, but it just doesn't feel like an indie game. It's weird to say that it's an indie game. You know what I mean? And that's why on Reddit people were talking about, like, oh, it's like a AA game, or some people were even saying, like, oh, it's a AAA indie game. I kind of like that term. So yeah, it's not a AAA game, but amongst, like, the indie circle, like an indie game would be Undertale, for example, or Celeste, or something like that, or Braid, or I could go on, Fez. But this is like, yeah, a AA or a AAA indie game. I would say the same thing about Squirrel with a Gun, or yeah, there's a couple games that come to mind in this weird gray area. Same with Jusant. But yeah, I love it. I love it. It's so cute. It's so cute. That's the main thing people were saying, is it looks like a Pixar film. Like when you're playing it, the cutscenes like look like a Pixar film. I mean, look at this little. He looks like a Pixar character. She looks like a Pixar heroine. And the game, it's oddly Zelda-like, and hold that thought. Here's why it reminds me so much of Zelda. So I googled Ember Lab. This is what you have to do. Do this right now. Go on YouTube right now. You're obviously on YouTube already. Go on YouTube right now. Search Majora's Mask Terrible Fate. It is the fan film from Ember Lab. So before they did this game in 2016, they did a fan film. Okay. Concerning Majora's Mask. They did like a 5-minute short, showing Skull Kid's origins and everything, and it's amazing. It's mind-blowing. It's like professional quality filmmaking, and it's just this little fan film they did, and that's what kind of got their name some traction. So that they started out not even making games, but that's what got them the traction they needed to make this game. And so yeah, they have roots in Zelda for sure, and that's why this game, I don't know. I was looking up comments and stuff, and people were saying, like, oh, it's like a Souls-like, or, is it a Souls-like? I don't know about that. I feel like that's, like, an overused comparison. Like, so far it's not okay, so they're twofold. Let's do this real quick. So twofold comparison. When people say Souls-like, they mean two things. So they mean, when they talk about Dark Souls, they talk about difficulty. So far, this game's pretty easy, actually, but I've read that it gets a lot harder later on. I've only played it for like 20 minutes. Just wanted to talk real quick about my impressions. But yeah, Dark Souls doesn't own the idea of a challenging game, so I don't like that comparison. We're like, oh, it's hard. So is it a Souls like it's hard? Like, no, throw that out the window. And then secondly, Dark Souls people will say, like, oh, well, it's a third-person action game. I mean, like, that's what this is. Yes, it's a third-person. Oh, so it's a Souls-like. It's like a difficult third-person action game. I mean, if you want to paint with a broad brush, sure. I mean, this has, like, nothing in common with Dark Souls, especially, like, tone-wise or character design-wise. Again, this looks more like a Pixar film. That's something that I've also heard about, like, the Ratchet & Clank series. Like, some of the newer Ratchet & Clank games that kind of look at that Pixar level of quality of animation. And, like, again, that's another thing on my list. I gotta play Ratchet & Clank on PS5. It's coming. It's coming. I'm getting there, guys. There's so many games to play, and I'm just one man. I can't do it all. But yeah, no, Ratchet & Clank's definitely interesting to me too. But yeah, I mean, this is more similar to either Pixar films or, let's say, Ratchet & Clank. I don't like the Dark Souls comparison. I think that's, like, completely overblown and just, like, not really relevant. So that's my 2 cents after playing it for 20 minutes. But yeah, I mean, if you're a Souls fan, maybe you'll get something out of this. Like, the combat, I guess, is kind of sort of similar. It's a third-person action game, but I don't think it's gonna have that insane level of challenge that you want from your Souls-likes. Although, I'll mention this, when I started the game, this is something really cool. This is a game with every skill level in mind. You start the game, and they ask you what difficulty level you want. There are 5 different options. 5. It's not like easy, medium, hard. That's usually what I'm used to seeing, and I always play at the medium. There's 5 different freaking options. There's, like, story mode, which is the bottom tier, like, super baby goo, like no one's gonna attack you. Your mana regenerates, like, it's like, your mana regenerates passively. You also regenerate mana every time you take damage or deal damage, like, I'm not gonna do that. And then there was like one like slightly harder than that. No, I'm doing the medium or the middle difficulty, which is I think was just called Spirit Guide. But then there's two tiers above that. So if you want to do like the masterclass Spirit Guide, yeah, I'm sure that's at the Souls level. I'm sure, yeah. So there's that if you want that challenge. I mean, I might do that if I beat the game on normal and want to come back to it one day, but that's neither here nor there. I realize I should just like start talking about this game. I've just been looking at the front cover. Deluxe Edition, cool, that's cool too. So let's take a look at the back. I got some goodies because I got the Deluxe Edition. But yeah, let's read the back. Untangle the past. Embark on your journey as Kana, a young spirit guide. Uncover the mysteries lurking in a forgotten village inhabited by lost souls. This action-packed adventure combines fantastical exploration with fast-paced combat. Find and grow a team of charming spirit companions, the Rot, on your quest to free the lost spirits. Find and collect Rot to gain powerful abilities, make discoveries, and transform the environment. A forgotten village and a strange curse. Draw on the power of the spirit realm to restore this once majestic world. Spirits have become corrupt, trapped, and unable to move on, challenging Kana at every turn. Yeah, it looks really freaking cool. And let me just mention, I got the Deluxe Edition. It's used, but luckily the guy still kept the little sleeve in here. So I got some really cool bonus goodies with this download code. So I'm going to look into that in a little bit. Yeah, I think the previous owner took the sticker sheet, so I don't have the sticker sheet, unfortunately. You know, whatever. I only paid $20 for this. I didn't buy it brand new. It's fine. It's fine. But that's pretty sweet. I even get those digital goodies. So, but yeah, so that's where, okay, so as you can see from the cover, she has a magic staff, and that's how she mainly fights, by swinging her staff around. But I've already seen gameplay footage. Later in the game, you can do a thing where you use your mana to, like, basically use the staff as a bowstring and fire these magic arrows and shit. So that's where it's even more reminiscent of, like, say, Zelda or Horizon Zero Dawn. Yeah, I would really compare it to either of those two games, not Souls-likes. I'm sorry, I don't think that comparison is accurate. And yeah, you collect these adorable little companions that, so far I've only had, I have, assembled, you find one in like an intro cutscene, and then at this point I think I have like 5 following me around, and they literally do follow you around like it's in Pokemon or something, and they're cute, and they can actually aid you in combat. The more you collect, the more stuff they can do as far as like puzzle solving and helping you out in combat. It's a really cool mechanic because, long story short, there's like a meter, and like the way, you know, they initially get scared off by the enemies and they kind of go into hiding, but the better you do in combat, they feel more emboldened, and there's like a courage meter, and so they'll like jump into battle and help you out if you're doing well already. You know what I mean? It's a really, I haven't seen really anything like it before. It's really cool. I have to make a note. I have to make a mention about the name of the creatures, the Rot. I don't like it. I even remember reading the article in Game Informer like a couple years back, and when they like showed the picture of them, and I was like, the Rot. That sounds like. Are you sure that's what they're called? Like, that doesn't sound right. Like, that's not. You don't look at a cute little thing like that and say, oh, the Rot. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is just me, but like I'm a big DC guy. Like, I love like DC's Animal Man, and in those comics, he's fighting like this like plague-like force called the Rot. You know what I mean? So like I always assume that associate that with something negative or destructive. I think most people do, that word. So it's weird to call these things, you know, the Rot. I think they really should have picked a different name. And you are fighting rot, like literal rot in the world. Like you're fighting corruption. You know, you're honestly, this game also reminds me of this is going to be a deep cut, but like I love Super Mario Sunshine, for example. That's not the deep cut, but there was a semi-recent Smurfs game, the Magic, what was it called? Smurfs Mission Vileaf or Villeaf or whatever, and that was just a Super Mario Sunshine ripoff. But I love it. I love games like that where like your town has been corrupted, or the forest has been corrupted, all the vegetation is like corrupted, and you have to like spray it with your special water gun or whatever, and like you physically see the island or the forest like get better. Like you're slowly clearing out all the rot, all the corruption. And that's similar to what Kana is. Like as you defeat these bosses, or as you like do these little missions, you're bringing back the vegetation. You're restoring the forest. It's great. It's great. I love games like that. So that's another thing that I would compare Kana to, not Dark Souls. But yeah, don't call these the Rot. Call them something else. I know it's too late, but that's my one criticism. Honestly, the rot, based on everything I've said, and from what I've seen, I remember reading the article. They were talking about like what's the difference between like the PS4 and PS5 versions, right? And luckily I have like the best version, the PS5 version. I guess the PS4 couldn't handle that many sprites on screen at once. Like it gets crazy in the PS5 version. Like again, I only have 5 following me around so far, but you see like these 5 models following you around, and so like if you collect like I don't know like 20 or 30 of these rot, you're gonna see them on screen following you around at all times. Like that's pushing the hardware. It really is, especially for an indie title or double A title, whatever you want to call this. But yeah, so the PS5 is capable of that, capable of running all these character models on screen at once during these battle scenes. So that's where it gets really freaking crazy. And so for that reason, I'm also going to compare this game to Pikmin. I think the rot remind me a lot of Pikmin, actually, and the fact that you actually use them in battle, the fact that you like kind of hurl them at your opponents or hurl them at monsters, and different Pikmin or different rot can do different things. Yeah, it actually reminds me a lot of Pikmin as well. So, like nines across the board, like this is remind me of a lot of other games that I really, really love, and so far I really love this game. I mean, again, I just started it, but I have nothing but good things to say so far. And so by the end of this, I think I'm going to be at like a legendary 10 out of 10 rating. I don't know, but that's where I'm at right now. Just as far as my first impressions, I fucking love this game, and I again, like, it was very well advertised on my end. Like, I read the whole cover feature story in Game Informer, but I don't hear people and I never see it in like stores or nothing. And again, I mean, it must be an indie game because it won Indie Game of the Year at the Game Awards, but it wasn't featured on that PlayStation Indies tab that I always talk about. I didn't see it on there. So like, again, like I don't know. Did this game do well? I read that it did. I think it did do well financially, but it's another one that like kind of flew under people's radars. I don't hear people talking about it. So yeah, please talk about it. Please play this game. Holy shit, play this game. It's totally worth your time, especially $40, or, you know, if you can find it used like I did for 20. Holy shit, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. So yeah, get on that shit right now. Kena, Bridge of Spirits.